It's a showcase of untold stories showing how Israeli volunteers are changing the world. A recent documentary, To Life, on the Christian Broadcasting Network is an up-close look at 5 Israeli organizations dedicating to helping people across the globe. Here with more on this is the CEO of CBN, Gordon Robertson. Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning. It's great to be with you.
Great to have you as well. Let's talk about To Life, a recent documentary you released. What can people expect?
They can expect to see a different side of Israel, a side that you won't find in the headlines, how Israel is reaching out with humanitarian work to over 140 countries around the world. Here's a tiny nation, size of New Jersey, and just 6-7 million people, but they are punching way above their weight class in the amount and the volume of humanitarian work they're doing.
Well, that's interesting. I love that term. They're punching above their weight class. You know, it's interesting. That might not be the topic that grabs the headlines, over here when it comes to Israel. But in fact, do you think that, reaching out and doing work is really kind of part of the Israeli culture?
It was a surprise to me to learn that in doing the documentary. We've spent 3 years with it, having video teams go with humanitarian teams from Israel to Nepal, to the islands of Greece to receive Syrian refugees.
Oh my.
We've filmed this around the world. And the amazing thing to me was to hear spontaneously from the volunteers. When you ask, why are you doing this? They would say, well, we're supposed to be a light to the nations. And then in the follow-up to the documentary, we're trying to finish it, I've had interviews with some of the politicians and asked the question of Benjamin Netanyahu, why does Israel do so much humanitarian work? And he didn't have to think about it at all. Instantaneously it came from him, well, we're to be a light to the nations. And so it just seems to be part of the national culture that this is what Israel is supposed to be doing. And for me, that's a story. That's something that you never hear about. What you hear about are the suicide bombings or the terrorist attacks, or you hear about occupation, the
Certainly.
boycott, divestment, sanction movement. You hear all these negative things. There's a steady drumbeat of condemnation of Israel that comes out of the United Nations. And in the middle of all of that, here's what they're really doing. They're reaching out with love to people around the world saying, how can we help you?
Well, that's really interesting to hear your thoughts. And I have friends who grew up in Israel, and it's different culturally there because both men and women enter the army. And to me, that's always kind of added to their sense of responsibility, their sense of kind of giving back from a young age as a citizen. Interesting to note that you have traveled the world yourself and spent time traveling the world in preparation for this documentary. Did you learn anything that surprised you when it came to observing the work that Israel did across the world? How were the folks received?
Well, here's something that did surprise me, and it came from this documentary, is to realize that when Israeli soldiers finish their tour of duty, when they finish their required service, it used to be that they would take a year off and go trekking and just try to explore the world. These days, they don't take that year to go trekking. What they do with that year is say, how can I go help people? And how can I be part of helping people around the world? And so they volunteer for a year.
Thank you so much, and it's an excellent point. Of course, the Peace Corps in the U.S. Was founded on that very idea of giving back. Great to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Great to be with you.
This series comes as the U.S. Embassy has moved to Jerusalem. If you'd like more information, just head to the website on your screen. The Christian Broadcasting Network is a proud sponsor of the Morning Blend.